Hello and welcome to Adventures in One Love. I'm your host Lydia, and today we are joined with Leanne Goff from Leanne Goff Ministries. Today's episode, we're talking about identity. It is the heart of what we do at One Love, and we're just so blessed to have Leanne share how she went from a woman of God to a little girl with a big dad. So share with us, how did you get involved in ministry? How did you get the revelation to where you are today?
Wow.
It's a big question.
Yeah, it is.
Just to start, the beginning.
Well, first, Lydia, thank you for having me here, and I'm super excited about it. And, I've always had on my heart since I was a little girl growing up in the Baptist church right outside of New Orleans, I wanted to be a missionary. The missionaries would come, and back then it was like, their carousel projector, and click, here we are doing this, click, here we are feeding the orphans, click, here we are building a home for the orphans. And, but I would just sit there in church and I would just I want to be a missionary. When I grow up, I want to be a missionary. I didn't want to be anything else. I just want to be a missionary. And so once I got married when I was 18 years old, and then eventually our incredible daughter and son came along. And then my husband and I actually took our first missions trip to Honduras during the Civil War. Let me see, I think that was in 1982. And we went in the midst of the Civil War to Honduras. And that was our first trip. And we call it, we got bit with the mission virus, We got bit hard by a bug, and we came out of that trip. I think it was April 1982. And we were just at that point, it's like, okay, we've got to do this. What do we need to do? And didn't realize at that point what God had in store for us across the board many, many years ago, and what we're able to do now and over the last many years.
That's just so awesome. I really have been blessed. I've been reading some of your books, and I've listened to some of your teaching content, and you have a really, what I see is a simplified way of how you see yourself in God's eyes. So can you share that with us?
Yeah, well, I got to say first, I didn't always see myself that way. I was raised in a family that really had challenges. I never knew my biological father, He lived only about an hour and a half, 2 hours from me, but I didn't meet him actually until 1982. And he was dying of cancer, and met him, and he died 6 months later. So I really, I had a lot of orphan mentality, and got saved in 1977. And, actually September 1976, I got saved, and radically saved. Seriously, I was raised in the Baptist church, but, I got radically saved in September 76. But I still had a lot of orphan stuff going on. I had enough in me to get me to heaven, but not enough to get heaven into me. And so, having that longing desire to be a missionary, my husband and I took our first missions trip in 1982. And then after a couple of years, we knew God was calling us to the nations. And we went in September 1984. We joined Youth with a Mission. We did our training in Lindale, Texas, and then spent some time in Guatemala. But what I thought that I was getting trained for the nations as a missionary, God was like, we're going to work on some things up here. I got your heart, but you got some things in your head that need to go. And so that's really in that training with YWAM that really began to dig into my life to really work those orphan things out. But it didn't finish there. There was a lot more that came over the years. So again, just having that orphan thinking. So fast forwarding, my husband and I go to work with YWAM for about 2 years, probably about 2.5, 3 years. And then we went on staff. We were living in the middle of Mexico, and we were asked to go on staff with Teen Challenge in Iowa. So, we go up to Iowa and work with Teen Challenge up there for about 4 years between Iowa and Nebraska. And that was a whole nother, we have a saying in Teen Challenge, like there's a program for the students, but there's a program for the staff, okay? Well, that was another level of me being worked on. We always think, we're going to go to ministry and we're going to go save the world. But it's like, God's like, well, I need to work on still saving you, and getting some things out of your life. And, excuse me, so between the Midwest, and then we were in Chattanooga, Tennessee for 6 years on staff there with Teen Challenge. And then we got an opportunity after 10 years with Teen Challenge to go back on the mission field. And so we went into a place called Oaxtepec, Mexico, just outside of Mexico City. And within 5 months, things really unraveled bad in our ministry there, and we found ourselves back in the States. And it was 2001, I think, somewhere around that, and up in Iowa again. And I was devastated. I was devastated. I found myself, this woman of God, traveling the nations, working with Teen Challenge for 10 years. Found myself sitting in a little cubicle at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Des Moines, Iowa, key punching about 40,000 keystrokes a day. No telephone, no nothing, just this cubicle. And I would literally go into the restroom and I would go into the stall and I would just cry God, you'll never use me again. You've given up on me. What am I doing here? Because my heart longed. I love the nations, especially the Hispanic culture, but I love the nations. And so here I was just devastated, and it was literally a setup by God.
That's just so awesome. I'm really encouraged. Even before you agreed to chat with us in person like this, which we're so excited about, I'm so excited about. In reading your books, I really see a lot of process. God is in the process of it all, and I think that really grabbed my heart. It really made me feel there's just so many things that I think we don't share in the body because it feels a little messy. And to admit, okay, God called me to the mission field, but then he had some cleaning out and healing to do. We really want to give the best presentation possible. But the reality is God cares about us and our health and well-being and our process as well. And I love that you are so transparent about your own process in that. So how did you get to a little girl with a big dad?
Oh, I love that. So, and just touching on before, free people set people free. And so there was still a lot of, I call it junk in my trunk. A lot had gotten cleaned out over the years, but there was still God. He had to go deep because I carried so much just rejection, and the majority of it was in my head. And I seriously, I lived for many years thinking, well, why? Even my husband, who is amazing, this month we'll be married 47 years. And but the first 10 years of our marriage, even though he loved me unconditionally, I would think, well, why does this man want me? My own dad didn't want me. Why would this man want me? And it took really God going deep. But then, that's the way God is. He goes, if I went in or somebody went in tomorrow and they were going to have, brain surgery and heart surgery and have a hysterectomy and all this stuff done, appendectomy all at one time, our body could not handle something like that. And it's the same thing in our spiritual being. God can only do so much at a time or it would literally take us under. So that's what he had to do with me. And so anyway, fast forwarding, and so here we are in 2002, I was this woman of God traveling the nations, finding myself in Iowa. I feel like I had let God down and he had never used me again. I was on antidepressants. I was suicidal. I knew how I was going to commit suicide. I mean, it was really, really a horrible time in my life, but God. And so I had an opportunity to go to an event in Toronto, Canada, called The Father's Blessing. And at this point, I was like the woman with the issue of blood. I was desperate. And what I did even before I went there, I threw myself one morning on my living room floor, just face down, and I just said, God, I'm giving all up to you again. After all these years, I'm like, I don't care about my title. I don't care about a reputation. I don't care about who knows me, who doesn't know me. I don't care about what I've done and what I haven't done and anything. Something's not right. We got to start all over again. And, I've been, obviously saved by the blood. I had been washed by the Lamb. I had been, baptized in the Holy Spirit, but there was something still. And that's one of the things I want to get to. So I just gave it up to him. And so that was around January, February of 2003. And, or 2002, I can't remember right now. But I went to this event in Toronto, and I thought I was going to this conference. And the first session, it was about 4,000 people there. And the first session, man, God just they in fact, they had like 30 Hispanics sitting off to the side. And, John Arnott, who was there leading it, he's like, where's our Hispanic community? And all the 30 Hispanics with their little transmitters, and here we are. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I'd go sit with them, because I love nations, but I love the Hispanic culture. And anyway, he said, come on up here, we're going to pray for all the Hispanics. And so they all went up there, and then I heard this, but I only heard part of it. I heard, if you speak Spanish. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to pray for those who speak Spanish too. 4,000 people, okay? They're going to pray for those who speak Spanish. And so I made my way up there. I didn't know till about 4 hours later what he actually said. And he said, and I mean, I knew at that point, hola, ¿dónde está el baño? I mean, I didn't speak Spanish. I had enough words to get me in trouble, you know? And so, but I made it up there. I'm like, they're going to pray for those who speak Spanish. And I got up there in this line of, you know, dark-skinned, dark-haired people, and they're all lined up and they have their hands like this. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's what you do here, you know? And I put my hands out, and somebody came along. It was a nobody. No, it wasn't Heidi Baker or Randy Clark or John Arnott or Bill John. It wasn't anybody. It was just a nobody on their ministry team came by and touched me and said, more, Lord, and boom, I was down. And I was like, and this before anybody preached, okay? This is like during the worship of the first session of like a 4-day conference. And I am on the floor and I am just shaking. I can't open my eyes. For the next 2.5, 3 hours, I can't move my body. I don't know who preached. I don't know what happened, nothing. And the point is that the liquid love of God just came in me and through me and in me and through me and just so radically penetrated every fiber of my being. I didn't even, and then a little bit later, somebody would come, more Lord, and then a little bit later, somebody, and I could just feel somebody touch my ankle, more Lord, and I would, oh, and I cried. It was like almost God took his love. Jesus washed me by the blood in 1976 when I got saved, but it was like God's love came in and just washed out every single fabric and particle that was not of him out of me. And so about 2.5 hours, 3 hours later, it was an afternoon session and started about 2 o'clock. And I finally can open my eyes and I sit up in there, 4,000 people, there's about another 100 people plastered on the floor. And I get up and I found out everybody else went to dinner. And I get up and I go to the restroom and I clean myself up and I go back and I sit way in the back where our seats were and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, God, what was that about? And this is what he spoke to me. This is what transformed my life. I mean, the shaking and everything on the floor was incredible, but what he spoke to me is what transformed my life. And he said, you know, Leanne, you've always been a woman of virtue. You've been a woman of integrity. You've been a woman with a heart and a passion after me. You know, he said, you've been a woman with hunger for me and my word. He said, you've been a woman of God, but I don't want a woman of God anymore. I want a little girl who knows she has a big dad. Boom, that's what transformed me, what he spoke to me. And what's the interesting thing, and that just hit me, and I'm like, and so the interesting thing is like, but I don't know anyone that knows how to be a little girl or a little boy of yours. I know people that are pastors and worship leaders and evangelists and prophets and apostles and, you know, et cetera, teachers, but I don't know anybody that just knows how to be your son or your daughter.
Yep.
Who knows how to just be a beloved son, a beloved daughter of yours. And so I said, Jesus, I don't know anybody, but I know you are the best son. So would you teach me how to be a beloved daughter? Teach me how to be that little girl that has a big dad, knows that her dad's got her back, that her dad dances, like Zephaniah says, wildly over her. Her dad that's going to stick with her, her dad that at the end of the day, if I have an F, he's going to make sure I have an A+. That he's going to exchange my F for Jesus' A+. And you know that he's not tolerating me, but he's celebrating me. And so for the next 3 years, literally, Jesus taught me how to be a beloved daughter. He just taught me how to do it. And I had to walk through that. It didn't just like, I'm a little girl with a big dad. I had to walk through that process and walk it out. And then it was 3 years exactly to the month that God put a spiritual father in my life that brought me to a whole nother level now of, okay, I've learned for 3 years that God is my dad, Abba Father, Daddy God. He's my dad. And then he's like, now I'm going to put a man on earth in your flesh and blood in your life so that you can understand how I can love you through a father. And I'm like, whoa, back the boat up. I got you. I don't need a spiritual father and everything. And then that was a whole nother season of my life.
I'm going to jump in right here. I hope you've been enjoying this video. And if you have, make sure and hit the like button. Subscribe, hit the bell so that you can get more content like this. You can find Leanne Goff's links all in the description below so you can go check her books out, check her podcast out. And just stay tuned because we're going to have more videos with Leanne to come. We sat down with her for a good hour and a half talking with her about her life, her experience, her businesses, her ministry, and you're not going to want to miss that in the future. I also want to remind you that we're selling coffee on our website. It supports our ministry, it supports Puerto Rico, and I know you want to do that. So stick around for more content just like this, and we'll see you around. Remember, it starts with one, and it starts with you. God bless you.